Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Dylan. I'm a second year photo student. And today for the Yale lecture series, we have Lieko Shiga, who is coming from 3 a.m. in Japan to give us this lecture on her work. I'm so excited. We also have Taku, who's a second year architecture student, and he's gonna be helping with some translation stuff, especially for the Q&A. All right. So I wrote this little introduction to Lieko's work that was very personal and really about my first experience with Lieko's pictures, which was really meaningful. When I look to be gutted by a piece of artwork, I never look to photography. I frequently feel gutted by music, by novels, and sometimes by movies, but photographs don't gut me. This morning, during my studio visit with Lieko, she said that she loves when a person can absorb a photograph in one breath, when an image gives you its story, its feeling, and its imagined inner world and the time and effort it takes to sharply inhale. I imagine Lieko's photographs turning into colorful wisps of hair, wisps that just with one breath slam into the back of your throat. Some of the wisps travel up toward your brain and pull your eyelids up so as to not let you blink, but sometimes they travel down to your stomach. It's these wisps that still live in my stomach that changed my life when I first saw Lieko's photographs. These wisps gutted me. It was a slow gutting, not violent. It felt as if I had fallen asleep on top of an acorn, but when I woke up, that acorn had grown right through my body into an oak tree. It's a feeling that isn't bad, but it isn't good. It's a feeling that's as grounded as it is imaginary and is more meaningful than real. Lieko's pictures are soaked in the mud after a tsunami and the flames from a forest fire, but they also feel as though they've been blessed by the people in them, imbued with a power and a ritual that is evidenced but unfixable. In an interview, Lieko once said, "For me, taking photographs is not like shooting something, it's like being shot. I am shot. The entire timeline of my existence is resurrected in the photograph. Every time I flip the pages of Lieko's books, I prepare myself for a ritual resurrection, but I found that I can't prepare myself for a seance in which I am the spirit being summoned, and yet it happens every page, every print, every breath." Thanks for being here, Lieko.
Thank you, Dylan. I'm very happy to be here. Yes, my name is Lieko Shiga, and I'm in Japan at the moment. And currently, Japan is 3 a.m. in the middle of night. But yes, so thank you so much inviting me to here to talk about the relationships between photography, media, and some important moment issue. So let me talk about my work. I was born and raised in Aichi Prefecture in Japan, and a compact camera was there at my home, and hence started taking photos. I was totally hooked onto a camera as it mechanically captures the world that is not visible to our own naked eyes. So I felt photographic image had its own space-time dimension, separated from past and present and future, in which I was living. And that was partly because I started thinking about my own adolescence body, of which I was not really in control at the time, like sands in a sand clock, counting every second towards death. So a body encapsulating death and photography as medium worked really well together. So these photographs were from Canary Project, which was inspired from the conversation with locals from Sendai and Brisbane and Singapore about their land and memories. And it was in 2006. Yes, well, I, as a person brought up in a safe and clean and convenient environment, and mechanical violence in camera resonated quite well, but at the same time, it was empty sometimes. So I felt strongly to replace the function of a camera to my own body. I moved to Kitakama village in Miyagi prefecture in 2008. That's the village. This village toward to the Pacific Ocean, and about 350 people was lived there. So I was there as their dedicated photographer to capture annual events, rituals, and festivals. And also I archived oral history of the community. And that is how the work evolved. I took every activities in Kitakama village in 2009. These are the memo from the oral histories recording. And these are the artworks which I've made in the village, inspired from their memories and their life stories and histories and so on. Yes, but in 2011, there was Great East Japan earthquake, and the Kitakama communities on the seaside was in total collapse, and eventually the whole village got disappeared. Yeah, it was my house, and there was my studio. So we lost 53 people by tsunami, and we immediately moved to emergency shelter and lived there in 5 months. And then we moved to the temporary shelter in about 5 years. And I kept taking photographs and artworks at that shelter. This is the gathering funeral. Yeah, and having this experience, the Spiral Shore exhibition in 2012 to 2013 was exhibited at the Sendai Mediathek. And I did it 10 times talk before this exhibition. So these programs were very important to think about our everyday life and memories and community and natural disaster turned to human disaster because Great East Japan earthquake has got the Fukushima nuclear power plant accident. And the relationship with the photographic media and the human society, etc., etc. So this 10 times talk program was very, very important for me. And yeah, these are the exhibition. Yeah, and I had unforgettable experience in the club's village. It is about 30,000 family or friends snapshot or portrait has found it from under the rubble. And these got gathered to club's community center. So we started to wash and dry and hang up to the wall to find the person who had it. The value of a piece of photograph has changed dramatically one by one. So because sometimes it has become just a paper, but sometimes it has become someone's body itself because everyone lost someone in this situation. Yeah, so I felt small photographs resist our reality. So I'm still think about it. What was there, you know? So it was really strong and unforgettable experience. Yeah, and well, so I'd like to talk about Human Spring Show at the Tokyo Photographic Art Museum in 2019 today. So there were people who miraculously survived the earthquakes, but because of unstable life that they had to go through, they mentally suffered and took their own lives. For farmers, earthquake or tsunami is not something unexpected to their lives. It was absolutely powerful force based on rigorous law of nature. However, those people were divided into various information warfare under the name of restoration. So they eventually lost their creativity to pull themselves together and despaired so much. So they lost their physical conditions and diagnosed as depression. So in Japan, there are a huge number of people diagnosed as psychogenic unipolar depression, and the suicide rate among youngsters, pregnant women, and postnatal women is quite high in the world. Moreover, in case of youngsters, more die from suicide than normal accident. So in fact, in Japan, the number of people dying from COVID-19 is much lesser than the ones dying from suicide. So psychogenic unipolar depression is normally diagnosed as bipolar disorder. So it is a psychological disorder where patients are trapped in the cycle of having manic state before and after falling into heavy depression. The symptom is caused by inner nature in our bodies, and even for the ones not suffering from the disorder, their balance is always swirling balance of weather or changing in seasons. However, if we experience severe oppression or agitation, the balance collapses and our senses towards daily life get transformed. So if depression progresses, it causes catatonia, where a patient cannot move his or her body at all, and epilepsy is there at the end of manic symptom. Under epilepsy, patient pass away while their consciousness gets completely dismantled, as if they experience death. But at the time, it is said they feel the sense of unity with the world, as if they are dissolved into it. So in both cases, our body shuts itself down automatically so that we don't need to bear the exhausting from manic depression. So Bin Kimura, the Japanese psychologist, described this extreme condition as eternal presence. Eternal presence. The term sounded as if it was for depicting space-time dimension of photography. And I even thought that it was indicating how photography or video-based medium affecting us. So people like shamans proactively train themselves to push their bodily limits through fasting in order to move their consciousness to the state of trance to change their sense and perform rituals. In ancient stories around the world, there are always spirits or evils, and sometimes tricksters appear. So, and the world represented in those stories indicated changes in senses through bipolarity of inner nature. And the presence of spirits and evils at festival is the fundamental representation of our human psyche. These are the set of questions when I started this work. So our psyche swirling from one end to the other intrinsically prosperous. And as far as I am concerned, it is totally different from unipolar depression. That is one of major social issues. So it can be said that suicide caused by unipolar depression is more or less social death. And the root cause of the death cannot be understood without deep analogies into Japanese modernity or all modernity. Yeah, and about making, when I am in front of a camera, so I do perform someone else, and I am well conscious about bipolarity of my mind and body. So by doing so, sometimes it alters the meaning of place and the flow of time. With production team as a whole, we strived to feel something that is not visible to our naked eyes. So for example, what is the state of freedom for a human? Using a model with our hands and through try and errors, and we even try to perform it. It sounds very easy and simple, but it was very difficult because we got too close to death. It is too dangerous. So although we tried to realize the state of freedom, it was exhausting and scary, and our consciousness automatically stops it. So by pushing our sense of value to the extreme limit, we could feel ethics in our own life size. And from this, we could primarily pursue what is represented and how in terms of expression. Yeah, and at the venue, I have made photo boxes and places them. They were built with wooden frames to where photos were attached, so the inside was empty. And the photos were merely hanging on the frames. If you come near the boxes, they sway with small wind calls. The structure was referenced to the word representation, which covers generic meaning of image such as emergence or appear or reenact or perform or substitute or portray an image, and in its etymology, there is meaning that an empty coffin covered with mourning black bears. I said once more again, an empty coffin covered with mourning black bears. So the earthquakes of 2011, I have lost quite a lot of close people at the same times. And the funeral for those whose bodies were not recovered was conducted with empty coffins. I've made the photographs of the 53 deceased members from the community, and those images became substitutional representation of them. So it was the significant question for me why empty coffins are linked to its etymological origin. It was very difficult for me, but I kept thinking that issue for 10 years. So we always experience the death of others and always live the absence and afterlife of others. So I think the word image, there is a story to recover the loss of human psyche, where a body of decays is paraphrased into an empty body, which is represented as an empty coffin. Yeah, and if you stand from a particular point in the venue, in the exhibition space, so you see 20 photos having the same image. And the gap from the images is concentrated to the point. So who is he? Who is he? As if to realize the arrival to spring of the Northeast Japan after the long winter, and as if to only to capture the color of blood which runs through our body, I have painted his face red. So if the term eternal presence, indicating the extreme conditions of bipolar disorder, has as close meaning as space-time dimension in photography. So how can I realize this? The work is the investigation into this question. Thank you so much.